that we were going to sign. That's from their rules or guidebook or something.
And then another one is $2.99.
It's all gonna change. I'll tell you the reason why.
Great. Okay. Good evening. It's 35 seconds after 6 o'clock. Welcome to the September 25th, 2014 Board of Selectmen meeting. We're going to ask the town administrator to read the agenda, please.
Sure. First, we'll vote to approve or amend the agenda and add topics not reasonably anticipated by the chair 48 hours in advance. And I recommend amending the agenda for a signing of the state aid anticipation note with the town clerk. And then public comment period limited to 10 minutes. And then a consideration of acceptance of $800 gift from David Parrish to the Conservation Commission. And then consideration of articles to be placed on the special town meeting warrant that's scheduled for October 15th. And then consideration of Mount Misery Cell Tower lease amendment.
Okay. Anybody else have anything to add? David, I'm trying to figure out which version of this agenda we're going off of, because I know there were some changes, so it's the shorter one with one of the items added back in, right? The signing of the state aid note.
Or the longer one with one crossed out.
Right.
That's what I'm asking, yeah.
It's the longer one with one cross.
Okay, so then we should say we're crossing that one out then.
The second page of
Okay.
your
So we're
document.
crossing out an item that would authorize the treasurer to create an OPEB trust fund account.
Yes.
Okay, so
That's
that would be
crossed out.
a further amendment, and,
This was not posted, this was just given, your first one on top was the one that was posted.
understood.
The second one is the recommendations for amendments with the treasurer for the OPEB trust fund
Okay.
eliminated.
Okay,
So I move to amend the agenda that was posted to add the signing of the state aid anticipation note with the town clerk.
okay,
Second that.
okay. Further discussion, all in favor?
But we already signed it.
Well,
Why don't we
I think
just sign it?
we've been asked to sign it in front of the town clerk, so
Oh.
I think it's easy enough to do that.
Actually, it's just a vote to approve, since
It's a
you have
vote.
already signed.
A vote to approve, and we have signed, okay.
Yeah, because I signed it
Yes, that's
right
right,
after
we all
you
signed it.
yesterday.
I signed it this morning.
Okay, and so this way the town clerk can witness the formal vote to approve. So do we have a motion on that?
So
Subject?
moved. Oh, yes, it's a formal motion.
Yep.
Where's the language? Anybody got it handy?
There.
Here, I got it.
You got it? Good.
I move to approve the sale of $233,465 state aid anticipation loan with interest at the rate of 0.55%, maturing June 19, 2015.
I second.
And under discussion, this is to fund Chapter 90 project for Woodland Street.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor, do you need a roll call, or just do it? Okay, all those in favor. All right, 3 ayes, and thank you, Madam Clerk. We are all set on that item. And do we have anybody on public comment, Diane? Do you know?
Nope, not tonight.
No public comment. Okay, we are way ahead of time. Is David Parrish planning to show up, or?
No.
Okay. If folks want to do the Mount Misery lease amendment, I did see Fran Parisi here. I don't know if anybody else needs to be here. Is Fran the only one here?
Yeah, but he stepped out because he
Well-
thought it was later in the agenda.
Well, this way we can get him home. Okay, great.
You may
Nobody was,
want to stick to the schedule on this one.
You think so? You don't want to have,
Never know.
nobody was coming for the acceptance of the gift.
no one is coming for the acceptance of the gift, so we'll do the acceptance of the gift first?
You might as well, it's just,
I just think we may not be here until 7, and it's not really, this is not really a public item, is it? I mean, it's public, but it's not a public hearing.
it's already
It's
been
just given
voted.
the amount of comment about notice and all that kind of stuff, I just would rather play it safe than
Okay.
sorry. Don't want someone saying,
I mean, it's
Yeah, I have no
already been
preference.
voted, it's a public signing is what it,
Right, no, that's what I thought. It's a public signing, but,
And all we're doing is signing the amendment to the lease agreement. We're not dealing with anything else because we've dealt with everything else.
Right.
I don't have any preference either way, whatever's convenient for Mr. Parisi here, and
I'm going to step out of the middle here and let you guys decide. I'm recused from any substance on
Well,
this
I just think, given the tenor of some comments that came our way about people not actually reading emails and not reading warrants of town meeting and not realizing,
all right, so we'll wait till the end of the meeting here. We may still be early, we may get through the rest of this quickly,
just in case.
just in
anybody
case.
wants
Is that all right? Yeah, that's fine. All right, we'll do that.
Sorry, friend. Thanks for coming in. Okay, so we're going to go back to the 6:15 item. It's a consideration of acceptance of an $800 gift from David Parrish to the Conservation Commission in support of a planting plan titled Listening to the Landscape at Barber Reservation.
Move to accept the gift and to authorize expenditure for that purpose.
And David, do you have any background on this?
Yes, this was, the planning board discussed potential alternative mitigating actions having to do with a scenic road permit, and so they agreed to donate $800 to the Conservation Commission because we didn't have some sort of tree revolving fund.
We don't have a tree revolving fund to plant trees on the scenic roads. And so this is going to Barber Reservation
Right.
landscaping, essentially?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I second the motion.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor? Aye, okay. All right, so we have an item, consideration of articles for special town meeting on October 15th, 2014, and that's the scheduled meeting date. And we have a proposed town meeting warrant that the town administrator has prepared as part of our package. Right?
Yes.
With the latest version, right?
It's all, yes, it's on its own. It's a
Yep.
standalone,
It's this document.
yes.
My biggest question here is that there's three Article 4s.
Right.
And so there was a memo from the planning board that basically is leaving it up to us, and in all due respect to the town planner and the planning board, I think the planning board should decide what it is they want to go to town meeting on and should present that.
Right.
Why
There,
would they want us to decide what article they should come forward on?
well, the article that needs to go on the warrant should be the broadest one that we could have agreement on, basically, is what Gino said. And then they won't be finalizing the language until their hearing, but they will be able to amend it as needed if it's, if we do the broadest language one.
So the broadest is the second version here, would you say?
Second version.
Yeah.
Yeah, the key thing about zoning is that you can always do something lesser, but you can't take a zoning article and make it worse for people on the theory that people don't go to town meeting because they were comfortable with what they read and didn't expect it to explode into something much more burdensome. So you want the general thing, which can always be reduced in scope, but you can't take a limited scope and expand it.
This is such a specialized provision, though. There's not a lot of difference between these three versions. I do think the planning board should tell us which version they're most comfortable with.
It's the second one.
Okay.
So that,
So let's put that on the warrant, and if somebody wants to amend it on the floor or before that, they can try to do it.
And they've been talking to ZBA with language, so they're not in agreement on which one. But if we pass this second version, they should be able to operate within
Okay.
that language.
so then I'd move to accept the second version rather than the first or the third.
Okay. And David, just a question, I don't know if you had this discussion with Gino, who's going to issue this special permit? It doesn't say who the special permit granting authority is. Is
From
it the
what I
Board of
understand, it
Appeals?
would go to the Board of Appeals,
Okay.
and they could, there's some mechanism that they could add that they wouldn't have to come back every year.
Well, it all
Or
depends
they
on how
could.
it's issued, yeah.
Right, right.
Okay. Mr. Taylor has a question or comment?
I could talk all night on this.
Please don't. But give us your comments.
If you'll give me the floor while I...
Absolutely, yeah, go over there.
Okay. Okay, is this working here all right? Okay, away we go. I have not had time to look over this article or articles, but I am opposed to the whole mess. And I'd just like to say that about over 25 years ago, the town meeting twice turned down the zoning and the permits to allow the Sherborn Inn to exist, to start up. And they finally, they snuck in on a second night. They recalled an article, which I think was absolutely illegal, certainly immoral, but after every one of my friends went home one night, they packed the meeting the second night and recalled the article and voted it. However, they also voted that there would be no outdoor entertainment at any restaurant in Sherborn. And there's also a provision in there, there'll only be 130 seats at the Sherborn Inn. And this went along very nicely now for I don't know how many years, let's say close to 30 years. And then about 3 years ago, the Sherborn Business Association decided to hell with the town meeting vote. We're going to have a big beer bash over there under Elliott Taylor's bedroom windows, and we'll do as we damn please. So they went to the Zoning Board of Appeals, and the Zoning Board of Appeals threw the town meeting vote aside, saying there'd be no outdoor entertainment at the Sherborn Inn. And they says just once, be just this one time, and they went ahead, voted it over my objections at that time. Now comes the next year. The business association's back in again. They want another beer bash. Elliott Taylor was at the zoning meeting saying, no, it's illegal, you can't do it. They're also giving the permit to Ed Rose and the Sherborn Business Association. I said, if you're going to give any appeals, it should be to the Sherborn Inn, the property owner, and not some private group. But like most everything I say, it just, go away. And they voted it. Now they came back a third year. Now this is only going to be one time. Yeah, we're up to 3 times now. And when I went to school, why, our mathematics has changed, I guess. But again, if it wasn't for this zoning bylaw that says no outdoor entertainment at any restaurant in Sherborn, there probably wouldn't be a Sherborn Inn there today, because the town voted no on outdoor entertainment. And also the 130-seat In the restaurant, that's gone by the boards. We used to have a building inspector that would go in and count the seats from time to time. I don't think that's happened in over 20 years. So, here's this old grouch that lives across the street, and I live within 100 feet from the front of the Sherborn Inn, and within 300 feet of the back of the Sherborn Inn. And I was opposed to the damn place before they even built it. I told them, don't shine lights on my house before they ever built it. It's been 30 years now, and the lights shine on my house. Every time they come up for special permits, I says, don't grant them the permit until we get an assurance that there'll be no outdoor entertainment ever, and they'll not shine lights, objectionable lights, on my house. The lights shine on. They were there last night. I'm sure they'll be there tonight when I go home. Now they say, we're a nonprofit organization. And I say, so what? I have to listen to nonprofit noise? Come on, that's absolutely ridiculous. And there are thousands of nonprofit organizations, and we could have a nonprofit beer bash over there every night of the year.
So Mr. Taylor, that's, we get the gist, and we're trying to decide if this goes on the ballot for the town meeting. We're not passing anything tonight. So if you want to wrap up, or maybe you've wrapped up, we just need to decide if this goes on the ballot. Then the town meeting will get a chance to vote. You'll get a chance to speak at the town meeting.
The town meeting shouldn't get a chance to vote on this, because this was all settled.
Well, that's what
30
town meeting
years
does.
ago.
Town meeting can change the laws. That's part of
This
what
was
town meeting
30
does.
years ago. This was said, there'll be no outdoor entertainment at a restaurant in Sherborn.
And that's how the town meeting process works. So the town meeting, if this gets put on the warrant, town meeting will get a chance to vote, advisory will get a chance to make a recommendation, you'll get a chance to speak, and everybody can come back. But
And everybody can ignore me. They don't live 100 feet away.
well, they may not ignore you.
So the hell with me.
You make some good comments,
I
and...
think that you are discriminating against a minority called Elliott Taylor.
Okay,
And
thank
this
you.
should not be allowed. This should not go on the town meeting warrant. You should vote no on this. And respect to the voters 30 years ago that said, we don't want this in Sherborn. And
Okay.
now you're telling them to hell with it, and
All right.
to hell with me. So, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Any further discussion about the warrant? Anything up on the board?
Just, if I could make two comments?
Sure, Paul.
The first, I want to assure Elliott Taylor that he is well-respected and always listened to.
Not by the Sherborn Inn.
Second, well, I think this board has listened to you, and I certainly listened to you. The second point I would make is that if I put my lawyer's hat on for a minute, I think the Zoning Enabling Act has a provision in it that talks about how zoning laws are changed. And there's a sentence in that law that says that the planning board can put articles before the voters. And those of us who are town councils, and I've been blessed to be a town council for many, many years, have constantly debated, does that mean that the planning board has an absolute right to put any article on that it wants, with no discretion on the part of the selectmen? Or do the selectmen have any ability to veto it? And I think the prevailing view is that the planning board has the authority to put any article that it wants on the warrant of a town meeting by virtue of that language. So I don't think the Board of Selectmen would be well advised legally to say, no, the planning board can't put a zoning article on the warrant in the face of a statute that specifically says they can put zoning articles on the warrant. And so taking off my legal hat and putting on my selectman's hat, we have to issue a warrant tonight, I believe, or sometime pretty soon. The planning board has come up with an article. They presented it. They want to have it on the warrant. I think we have an obligation to put it on, whether we support it or we don't support it, whether we think it's a good idea or we think it's a terrible idea. I think it's just our duty under Chapter 40A of the general laws to put it on. So I don't see I have a choice here but to accede to the request of the planning board. My concern was that I wasn't sure what the planning board wanted. But now that David has clarified it, that's what they want, I for one feel like I can't get involved in deciding whether it's a good article or a bad article. I basically have to put it on. That doesn't mean at town meeting your views won't prevail. That doesn't mean at town meeting that you don't have every right in the world to make the case to the voters.
In 2 minutes.
Okay. Thanks, Paul. Anybody else have
Well,
any comments
the
on
only thing I
this?
say is that the way I look at this, and I think I have the current one, the zoning bylaws, this reflects, what happened 30 years ago as well as everything that's happened since. And it's, what's in here has been approved by voters through a pretty rigid process. I think enforcement folks and so forth are pretty good at it, at making sure that our zoning bylaws are enforced, they respond to complaints. So I respect what Elliot's saying, but I think, what happened 30 years ago is part of what we're dealing with today, and this is what we're dealing with today with this amendment that's been presented to us by the planning board. And so I support putting it on the warrant to let the voters decide what they want to do. The only thing I would suggest is that for this article, as well as the ones before it, that we put in who the proponents are, as we typically do.
Yes. Should be.
So we would have planning board in parentheses after the second version of Article 4.
Okay. And so the first
First three, we'd have BOS, I think, Board of
we
Selectmen.
would have Board of Selectmen. Well, Article 3, we have government study, or is that Board of Selectmen?
I believe that's Board of Selectmen.
BOS, okay.
Are we going to talk about each of these, or how
Sure.
are you going to do that?
Sure, if you want to, yep, it's fine. Do you want to start?
Well, just so you, no, I support all, I have no problem with any of these being on the warrant, and I support what they're doing, those first three articles, what they're doing. The first one, talking about the veterans, allowing them to establish, having the town establish, actually authorizing the selectmen to establish the program to reduce the property tax liability for veterans. And Paul can certainly speak to that better. The second one is the OPEB trust fund. It looks like we're dealing with an administrative clarity here to be sure that we can put money into an account that we can open. I look to the town administrator to clarify that one, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's exactly.
So the issue there is we have the money, but we have to vote to have a fund to put the money in so we can get it to the OPED?
Right, in 2010, the annual town meeting had voted to establish an OPEB trust fund. The actual account wasn't set up. It wasn't until 2014 when we actually had a vote to put funds aside in the trust fund. So that's what we're trying to do, is get the custodian set up, the authorization for the custodian.
A town meeting's vote necessary here because it's going into the state fund, the PRIM
Right,
fund,
the PRIM.
which is a
yeah.
pre-existing fund, different from what town meeting had authorized. Town meeting authorized to set up our own fund. This isn't going to be using our own fund. It's going to go
Right.
into someone else's fund.
Right.
Well, it goes into, right, the someone else, though, is the organization that's set up to manage these kind of funds statewide
Correct.
for all the different municipalities and all the districts.
Right.
Yes.
And we did have a presentation from them that people might have seen. I think that was last fall.
Yes.
Yes.
I did not mean to be pejorative.
No, I didn't take it that way. I just want to make sure people understand it was a specific fund,
Right.
and not one where we, have discretionarily selected it. It's the fund that's established for this purpose.
Right, so they require the town to vote to name them the custodian, and then the money can be transferred into the account.
So if the voters approve this at the special town meeting on the 15th, how quickly can the
The board,
funds from the town go in? Or
the board would meet again on December 9th, and then they could vote to approve it then, and then we could make the transfer. Right now, we've already transferred it out of just a regular account into the MMDT. That's a depositor's trust account, I think, that has a higher rate. And then, so that's where it's parked now until
Gotcha.
December.
Okay. All right. So we have those three. The third one, Peter, did you have any comments on the third one?
Just the third one is the one where we're asking, we're asking the voters to approve converting the office of treasurer from an elected office to an appointed office. And there's been a whole bunch of discussion on that over the past several years. I was at the governance task force meeting on Monday night, and they voted 4-0 in support of this article. They're a five-member committee. The one member had to leave early, so was not there for the vote, but from what I could tell, was in favor based on his prior discussion. So this one is a step in the direction of putting the treasurer under the Board of Selectmen.
Okay. And the fourth article is the planning board article, and the fifth article is the petition act, shall the act passed by the general court entitled an act increasing the number of selectmen in the town of Sherborn be accepted. And David, we do not have to put the text of that act here?
No,
Wouldn't be better to do that? Or is it going to be just in the
We can only-
explanatory material?
We're supposed to print the article as that appeared exactly on the petition. And
I see,
that's why
okay.
there
All
are,
right.
that's why there are no uppercase letters on certain words that normally would be,
Well, that's okay.
because it's exactly as it appears on the,
I read through this petition, and I realized that the town has a problem, but it's not a problem we've talked about before. It's a handwriting problem. These signatures, well, anyway, I think people would be thrown out of elementary school if they wrote like this. But,
I've learned when I sign petitions, I put parentheses and write my name out, because my signature, I understand.
these do all have your name after it, Paul. So So other people have adopted that practice. Okay, so that's kind of a simple one, David. You've explained why the form of this article is the way it is. But I think it'll be very clear in the explanatory material what the act is. Does anybody have any other discussion items on
Just sort
this
of a
warrant?
general comment. but
Yeah.
I'm not sure that we should load up this town meeting with all these articles. I hate to see a 2 or 3 night town meeting. And do we really need to do all these articles now? There's one article that citizens have said needs to go forward, but do we really need, why can't these articles wait till the annual town meeting?
I compiled them. They can, theoretically, they could all wait. It's a timing issue with the planning board article, that it just works better for the town if it's passed now, since we have an opportunity to, as opposed to waiting to the annual. Going back the treasurer to the appointed, it just makes sense to do it now while it's fresh in everyone's mind, and it gets it out there. If we've been supporting it for a couple of years, and now we have an opportunity.
Is there any timing issue there, David, in terms of putting it on the annual election ballot? Does it have to be adopted by a town meeting a certain number of days ahead of that annual election or anything?
Yeah, I believe it has to be done the same way as like other expansions of the 3 to 5, that it was a certain number of days before.
Well, that was a special act, though. This is not a special act.
Right.
Right, this isn't a special act. I think this one requires going on the ballot for voters to approve or not approve.
Right, but it wouldn't be in time if we did it at the annual town
Correct,
meeting.
correct. So it is time sensitive.
So there's a time sensitivity.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I was trying to
Yes,
understand.
yes.
Okay.
And so it won't prevent the need for people to run for the office of treasurer, because the voters won't determine until that ballot. So if, in fact, voters, the way I understand it, and we'll need more clarity, I think, as time goes on here, but the way I understand it is that voters could be voting for a treasurer and voting for this position to be appointed, and if the voters approve that this position be appointed, then the election of a treasurer is a moot point. That's how I currently understand it. Is that a fair description? From whatever this chapter 41 is. That's what I got out of the governance task force the other night.
Okay. So I think we found a rationale on all of them, except maybe the first one, but I think
Yes.
that's the one Paul was
Right.
advocating for. The OPEB money, I just think,
Sooner
something
than
we
later.
should move sooner
Yes.
rather than later.
Yeah.
So,
Well, on the OPEB one, it's not like the money's disappearing or not being put to good use. The issue there only is, can we put it under the control of the pension reserve investment management trust, who are specialists in investing money and getting good returns. So whether that's done this week or 5 months from now, doesn't really matter.
I mean, we've waited 4 years to get money into the account, so he is
What's
right,
that?
9 more months. I mean, we could take the money, put all 300 in a 9-month CD, wait till annual town meeting ends, and
Well, I fail to see how that is going to create a lot of time needing to be taken
right.
at this special town meeting. Or
I don't
any of these
I don't see a
for
lot of
the
controversy
matter.
on any of these. I mean, we know there are going to be some pros and cons on some of them.
That should be it.
Well, I thought you remember at the annual town meeting, I thought the veterans thing was a 5-minute discussion, and then it became this, almost a filibuster that went on and on and on and on and on for an hour or more.
And in the time frame that we have to make a case to advisory and everyone, I'm not sure we've ironed out what exactly the implementation problems that they were looking to,
On the
for us
veterans?
to explain, yeah, to.
So are you
to
recommending
explain.
we take the veterans one off of this?
No, I'm just concerned that we'll end up in the same.
I mean, is Paul recommending?
No, I'm just saying that it's unpredictable. I mean, it's easy to sit here and say, well,
That's
these
the beauty of
articles
town
are all
It's
simple.
unpredictable.
And you've already heard there's probably going to be a floor fight on the planning board article.
Yep.
And that could go for a while. So, again, my thought was that this was a citizen petition, and they wanted a citizen article acted on. And to some extent, that's what this town meeting is really about. And then now, we have all these things that have come forward, and now it's become, we got zoning, we got a whole variety of stuff.
Well,
It looks like a long time.
I don't know, we're, sorry, Mike, we're bringing people out, people are coming out that evening. Rather than have these 3 or 4 articles on top of whatever we're doing at the Springtown meeting, I think we can cover it in that evening, and if not, well, we go back to the well or
I don't, see- I-
one
yeah,
or 2 of them.
I'd be surprised if we couldn't cover 5 articles in one evening. That'd
Right.
be unprecedented.
Right.
Number 2, although there were a lot of words, it's,
It's a housekeeping
It's-
matter for the
Barbara,
most part.
our town council said this is just a housekeeping
Yeah,
matter that's required of us.
right. And I think Article 3 is important, just to keep that time frame rolling, particularly coming into an election. Better to have that covered and put on the ballot if that's what the voters approve on the 15th.
I think early on, when we heard that there might be a petition out there or a reason for a special town meeting, we had talked that it would be a good time to put
Right.
something like that on.
Especially given the situation we're under right now.
Again, I'm just raising the issue to have the discussion.
So if there's anyone that sounds like it needs more time, Paul, it could be the veterans one, just to,
We could move that after the citizens petition. I mean, if you're really worried about it, we can move that, and then.
we want to get it right, but we, and I saw somewhere in the,
I mean, I kind of agree with you that that's the one that's more apt to be controversial. I don't know that it needs to be controversial. I think it was the last time partly on a timing
yeah.
and a process issue. I'm not sure even advisory, although I don't think they supported it, I don't think they were against it in substance, and I think they
Right.
even said that. So I
Was
think,
the
I think
timing.
you will have backing from advisory, and I think you have backing on this board, and I didn't hear anybody speak up at town meeting in the spring on the merits of that who was against it. The objections were to, more of a late notice kind of objection, and so it's percolated now for a while. People know it's out there. You had vowed to bring it back. This is your first opportunity to bring it back. So I'm not encouraging you or discouraging you from leaving it on, but it really is your baby, and I defer to whichever way you wanted to go on it.
Well, I think the overriding concern here is to do what's right by our veterans. We are asking them now to be exposed to Ebola, to be out in harm's way in Syria and Iraq and Afghanistan, and communities across the state are trying to honor and recognize that service. Sherborn missed the opportunity to do that, and here's a chance to fix it. So it's hard to say, don't do it. There's too much of a debt owed to too many servicemen.
Well, you've talked me into it, Paul. I think we should leave it on here.
so do I.
I don't, it is your call, Paul, but for all the reasons you just said, I don't see that there's a reason to not move forward with this. I mean, you're right, there'll be a floor fight on at least one article. That's what happens at town meetings. We have a good town moderator. I'm sure she'll move things along. I think there's a process for taking things out of order if somebody gets frustrated that the citizens petition is at the end, which is where citizens petitions are typically placed on our warrants, then somebody can move to take it out of order. I don't know. I think this looks okay to me.
It's okay to me.
I think if advisory feels that, things can't be vetted properly, they'll just take no action on it
Right.
at that time. But
That's right.
I think if we have it in front of us, we should at least go that far as having it being reviewed by advisory and get their comments on it, and hopefully they have enough time to take a position on it.
Okay. Do we have a motion on the,
I move to
Warrant?
approve the warrant as amended.
and by amended, it's to add who put
Add
them on?
proponents, as well as to limit Article 4 to the second version provided by the planning board.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Well, look at this. We have Jeannie Guthrie's came to our rescue.
Jeannie.
Thank you, Jeannie.
Where would we be without
Wow.
her?
Okay, good.
So is this the right version of
This looks like it's the right
Article
version.
4?
Yeah, it was the middle one.
Yep.
Yep, great. Planning board.
Good,
Board
it's
of
down to
Select-
2 pages.
Board of Selectmen,
Nice.
given under our hands is 20. Okay, so we have a motion. Do we have a second, Paul?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor? Aye, okay, so we
Go
sign,
ahead and sign.
that's the official one? Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Where do I sign? Oh, where it says Peter Cruz.
Yeah, Peter Caruso. Make sure we can recognize your signature now, Peter.
That's right. Print your name afterwards, so we know who the hell it is.
I can't go incognito. huh?
Okay, good. So now we have the consideration of Mount Misery Cell Tower lease amendment. Greg, were you here for something particularly, or just to observe because it was really boring tonight other than this? Okay. Nothing else to do. All right.
Hanging out with the cool people.
Perhaps we should start charging admission to.
Start charge admission as a fundraising?
Mike
I think
Giammo
people would
show.
stop showing up. Fran can come in, sure. Always glad to see Fran.
Did you close the warrant then?
We had closed the warrant as of yesterday. We voted that last week to close it yesterday. And today we were just voting to sign the warrant, right?
What happened to the assessor's article?
The assessor's article.
They withdrew it.
Okay.
They withdrew their article?
Yes.
I'm sure there's a story.
Yeah, I think they had more to deliberate on.
Okay. That's great. Okay, I'm going to let you chair this part, or Paul, I guess, would chair this part, since I'm accused on this one.
Okay. Well, the good news is that we've reached a settlement of a long-running lawsuit. And as part of that settlement, the lawsuit goes away. And also as part of that settlement, there is an amendment to the lease. And the issue before us is to carry out that settlement and to sign the lease as amended. So I'm looking for the copy that needs to be signed.
This one.
There we go.
The amended lease basically just removes a provision where the town was originally going to receive $25,000
$1,000 payment.
for the first signing of a carrier on the tower, which Insight has. But we're waiving that as part of the
Right, and it
agreement.
also amended Exhibit C, which had the higher, the taller towers, and just limits it to the 100-foot tower versus the 130-foot and 150-foot tower rent payment schedules under the former Exhibit C.
Yes, as part of the settlement, the height of the tower is to be reduced to 100 feet.
Right.
As opposed to the 130 feet that was originally presented.
Right.
Elliot?
Could you tell me just what this settlement is?
Well, why don't I ask, we have Insight's counsel here.
We are going to, the tower will be built
Yes,
on Mount Misery,
yes.
and there are provisions, of course, you just mentioned height. I'd like to know.
There are other provisions to lessen its impact, visual impact.
Okay, and he's going to...
Well, perhaps he could,
When is the settlement actually
Thank you.
public? Does it have to go to somebody
Isn't
to
it
be?
still, there was one little bit still waiting to go to whatever it was, land court, I think? Everybody signed off on it, but
Right,
they needed something, I saw in an email, cleared up.
right. I thought it had to go through one.
It's been sent to the judge, everything's been sent, we just need to sign off on it.
I mean, I wouldn't
Everything-
consider
he
it.
got everything today, actually.
I wouldn't, he did sign it, or?
No, he just got everything today.
Oh.
I didn't see a signature yet.
I wouldn't consider that a public document until after the judge signs that. Okay.
Well, we can still do the lease amendment,
The lease amendment is a public
public
document.
document.
Yeah.
okay.
all right.
So we can't discuss all of the details at this point. We'll do it at the next meeting of the board.
And I don't recall what else there was in the lease amendment that changed. I think that was principally it.
I mean, I would expect that we could post the settlement and the lease amendment as one whole document as soon as it's signed by the judge.
No, this has been the lease amendment we've had. So I would move to approve this lease amendment, Paul.
I'll second it. There was a hand up in the back from Pat Casal.
Just a question, when that tower is built, will it cover, what's the area that it's going to cover? Will it cover farm ponds then appropriately, so there's no areas that are going to be left out? And will that extend to the Dover Sherborn Regional School System? I mean, the area that's covered by the south. Or can't you answer that?
The fundamental purpose of the tower in that location, as was described at various town meetings and in legislative hearings at the General Court, is to provide for public safety communications, because it was difficult for our police and fire to communicate safely in that area. And this tower does address that issue and does provide enhanced safety and enhanced communication for the residents of Sherborn who live in the area you just mentioned.
But is the area that's covered, would that in any way extend as far as the Dover Sherburne system? Because they're looking at another cell tower over there, and I'm just
I would
curious.
say nobody could answer that until it's up, but the charts that we looked at, the coverage, naturally, the higher the tower, the better coverage we would have, and I think at the 150 feet, we had that reach. At 100, I don't know. It's less and more immediate, I think.
I'm just curious.
Elliot?
I don't know of any hills between Mount Misery and the regional school complex that should block any communications from that tower. Of course, that's just a guess, but as you say, when it's up, then we'll know. Then we'll wish we'd...
Do you want to
I
comment?
don't mind answering the question.
Okay.
The maps that we provided at the zoning and the planning board hearing show that this tower is designed to cover a portion of Route 27, basically between Farm Pond and Goulding, Farm Road and Goulding Road, and also the whole Farm Pond area on this side of the pond. It's basically in covering the eastern part of Sherborn. It actually dovetails and supplements with what's being proposed in Dover, not replacing anything.
Okay.
Is there anything else you want to say to the people of Sherborn while you're here?
We've actually been very fortunate to work with town council towards the settlement and towards Mr. Williams is doing very good about dealing with these issues, so we're trying to move it forward as best we can.
Thank you. You ready to vote?
You bet.
All in favor? You got it, so,
Thank you very much.
So we have to sign something.
yes.
Well, you were disruptive back there, I must say. I was going to pull
Yeah,
that gavel out.
you were going to have to call the police here.
Why don't you take that order, or we'll just send it to you.
So, once you sign that, I don't think we have anything else on the agenda, do we?
No.
We do not. All right.
We're on schedule. We're
Ooh, we're ahead of schedule.
ahead of schedule for just, man.
So there you go. Okay. Then we're just going to take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Just before we vote on it, could we usually cover what's going on in the upcoming meetings, so our next meeting is...
Well, our next meeting that's posted, I believe, is going to be the advisory hearing on the 1st of October, is it not?
Right, right. We have you posted for that, but the next meeting that you would have a full agenda of business would be October 2nd, unless you're going, unless you want to kick
I
that.
think it's October 2nd.
So will we be likely, if advisory asks us for where the selectmen stand on various articles?
We're going to have to take that vote
Do
there,
that,
I think. Yeah, I think we could do that either before advisory or at advisory.
Or you could, advisory's not meeting until 7 o'clock.
Why don't you post this for 6?
We could post
Where
for
is the advisory?
6.
Oh, the advisory meeting's
It's
here.
right
And I can move as much of that October 2nd agenda into that hour. Actually, you'd be just talking about the town meeting, right?
Yeah, we should make recommendations on the town meeting articles that night.
First. But
Yeah,
will you
so we
still-
don't need a meeting on the 2nd perhaps, if we can get away with that, right?
Yeah, perhaps.
Okay.
Okay. So the 1st of October is our meeting, which is next Wednesday. About 6 o'clock here.
Yes.
Okay, good. So we have a motion to adjourn. We have a second. Okay, all in favor? Aye, we are adjourned.